It is the podcast about positivity. Hello, Jarrod Walsh is my name. Thank you very much for listening. If it's the first time you've listened to the Role Models podcast, well, I definitely do encourage you to go back and listen to the previous 6 because this is episode number 7. I can't believe I have done so many episodes so far, and there's so many still to come. Actually, in episode 6, I managed to catch up with the games record holder for the Port Adelaide Football Club in the AFL, Kane Cornes. And what you know about Kane Cornes is that he had a pretty well-documented career, to say the least. 300 games, best and fairest, all Australians, premiership player, and a very highly publicised exit from the AFL when he decided halfway through the 2015 season that was it. He's going to become a firefighter and say goodbye to football. Was he happy about it though?
It does leave a little bit of taste in my mouth, probably the way I handled it, and I was just probably didn't back myself in enough that there was going to be opportunities outside of footy.
And the whole reason I do this podcast is to talk about people who live their lives in the public eye, but also some of the things that go on behind the scenes. I mean, how they promote positivity, what they're doing in the community, how they're role models, and some of the struggles that they have had in their private lives. And Kane Cornes and his family have definitely gone through some struggles. We spoke about his oldest son, Eddie. Now, Eddie was born with his heart on the wrong side of his body, and he's had a few more health issues as well.
Got some other complications with that as well, asthma and some things as well, and one of his lungs is a little bit smaller than the other one. So he's got some challenges in front of him, but he's a great kid and doing pretty well at the moment, which is great.
It was a really open and honest chat from a human being that I reckon is pretty misunderstood. So if you want to hear the real Kane Cornes, what he went through in his footy career, and of course, all he went through in his private life, definitely have a listen to episode 6 of Role Models. Until then, let's get into episode 7. I want you to do me a favour as I introduce my very special guest for episode 7 of Role Models. Stop whatever you're doing and close your eyes. Unless you're driving, of course, or operating heavy machinery, then probably don't close your eyes. But just imagine you are a young Australian who is living life to the fullest. I mean, you're fit, you're active, you're healthy, preparing to travel the world, your job's going really well, and everything's going great. Until something just doesn't feel right. You know that feeling sometimes internally when things just aren't great? So you go to the doctor, get checked out, and then these words are communicated to you. You have a brain tumour. I mean, me saying that into a microphone, it gives me the shakes because it's such a scary phrase to hear. My next guest had to live through it. His name's Jacob Walker, and Jacob's done a lot of work for the AFL, for Channel 9, for Channel 10, a lot of sports producing as well, including stuff for Cricket Australia, which is how I got to meet him. What I didn't know about Jacob, though, was after we met at the cricket a few years later, I stumbled across a video of a man who was diagnosed with a brain tumour and survived. And not only did Jacob Walker survive his brain tumour, 7 months after the surgery, he completed something unimaginable. It's an amazing story. It's inspiring. I'm still shaky just introducing him to you. Look, I'm just going to say this before we get into it. If you need to hear something that's going to give you a little bit more perspective on how short life is, this next 20 minutes is going to change your life. My very special guest for episode 7 of Role Models, Jacob Walker. This is a Role Models podcast which I have been looking forward to doing for a very long time because it's with a man who I kind of lost contact with for a few years and then by pure coincidence got back in touch with him. Jacob Walker, thank you very much for having a chat.
You're welcome, mate. Thanks for having me.
So let's give the listeners a brief background on how we met. I was the PA announcer for an Australian Cricket International, and what happens is I go into a production meeting and you usually meet people who are show callers working the big screen, the sight screen and things like this. And my experience the year before was there was a really angry man working who just abused people, and I wasn't really looking forward to having that experience again. And then I rocked up in this particular year and then there was you, mate, and you were a pleasure to work with. So can you just give us a brief background on your career and how we got to meeting?
Absolutely. So this was, you're right, we actually met in South Australia at the Adelaide Oval, of all places, a magnificent venue in which it is now. At the time, I was working as a line producer / show caller for Australia's cricket organisation, Cricket Australia, and we would travel around the country and produce all the entertainment, all the highlights, all the replays, everything that you would see at a ground. And it happened to be in Adelaide that I was stationed, and I got told about this guy who was from a radio network in Adelaide, and that he'd be coming up shortly for a quick meeting. And I thought, I don't know who this guy is. And then, as it turned out, we got to spend some awesome times together, sitting right next to each other, overlooking the cricket at Adelaide Oval, and got to see some amazing things. So we just got in touch, purely by coincidence then. And we're on the same page as far as sports goes and broadcast, and we were able to just take it from there. So I worked in cricket. I worked in Aussie rules football. I'm doing some TV side of things as far as producing goes. But then we just developed from there, and then as you said, we lost contact until a few years later when we were both working on the Big Bash, the 2020 competition.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know, Jacob, how much hard work goes into the big screen and putting on game day presentation, and your role as well. I mean, you have to take care of what people see on the screen, what the MC's about to do, the different camera angles, making sure, and one of the words that you used all the time was cover, because you needed to make sure when the bowler was running in that people wouldn't see that vision on the screen. So it's a pretty intense job that you had.
You're right. There's a lot of aspects to it that people don't realise. When you turn up to a game of football or cricket or whatever it might be, and you sit there and watch the video screen, you don't really realise all the thought and preparation that's gone into it behind the scenes. And things like the national anthem that takes place every time, that has to be cued in coordination with broadcasters. And then the game itself, you're right, with the Adelaide Oval configuration, the big screen is actually down one end of the wicket, in which batsmen can't actually take strike until there's a graphic up, so there's no moving images to distract them. And there was one time where I remember we had Sachin Tendulkar at the striker's end, and he actually wouldn't take his stance, an Indian great, obviously wouldn't take stance until we'd actually had that covered. So there are actually a lot of moving parts to it. There's a lot of interaction with audience. There's a lot of education as well that takes place. There's a lot that goes into it that you don't really see behind the scenes.
Now, I also remember we did connect over our love of sport and American sport, because you were preparing to head over to Los Angeles and preparing for one of your American trips, and we were talking about what NBA games you were going to go to, what hotels you were staying at, and that was really the last time we spoke. And then a few years later, as you said, we were both working on the Big Bash, and it was... I feel really rude referring to this woman by this title, but I think it was Mornay Morkel's wife, who works for Channel 10 in the coverage of the Big Bash. What's her name again, Jacob?
Ros Kelly it is, yes.
Ros Kelly,
yep.
Yes. Okay, so she shared something on Twitter, and she shared a video of an inspirational story of a man who suffered a brain tumour, and I thought, I'm going to watch this. And I got about halfway through the video, and I'm like, holy shit, this is Jacob Walker I'm watching here. What is going on? So what happened in between that time that I saw you? You were preparing for your trip, and then this video, which has gone viral, we can get to that in a second, but what happened?
It's quite an amazing story, actually, to be quite honest, and in a lot of ways it's the best thing that's happened to me, and we'll get to that shortly soon. But it's just I was fit and healthy. Work was going well. Career was on track. Everything was going well, and then I just started having some problems concentrating. I was losing my concentration. I was drifting off into space. I was having some trouble finding my words in conversations, and I thought maybe it's stress. I don't know what's going on here. So I thought, look, I'm just going to go to the doctors and just get it checked out, just so I know there's nothing drastically wrong with me. And then they found this huge brain tumour, and that just changed my world. In the space of 2 weeks, I went from working full-time, actively training, working out, to being under the knife and not knowing what the future held. And when anything's involved with your brain, you really don't know what's going to happen or how you're going to feel or think after this. So it was all of a sudden the rug was pulled from under me, and I was scared, and I was facing an unknown future.
Can you take me through that moment where you were sitting there with the specialist or the doctor, and those words were communicated to you that you had a brain tumour?
It was, the way I best describe it is, it was just an absolute numbness. I mean, I couldn't even gather my thoughts to really understand what it meant. I thought, for lack of a better term, I thought that everything was just going to be okay, and you couldn't grasp the gravity of it. With tumours and with brain tumours and brain cancers, there's so much unknown until they actually go in and take it out, or and test it in a lab to see the severity of it and what it's likely to do. And every tumour behaves so differently that when the neurosurgeon's there, I have my parents in the room with me, and the doctor said, yeah, you have a brain tumour. It looks to be cancer. We're going to have to go in and do a surgery quite urgently. And I just thought, this can't be, like, you don't even know one way or the other whether it's, what you're faced with. So I guess numbness was probably the main feeling. And then I thought, what if I'm going to die? And I just thought, like, I haven't even lived half of my life yet. What's around the corner? And all of a sudden you start to just question everything, and you don't know. There's not enough emotional maturity to deal with those kinds of things.
So that moment, and I did want to ask you, because of what you said just then, of that thought of that I'm going to die. Was there a moment that you've just sat back and gone, well, this is it for me? Because we know what we see in the public in regards to brain tumours is that the longevity of people's lives after they're diagnosed, it's not very high.
No, it's not, and that's exactly right. And they say that 1 in 10 people diagnosed with malignant brain tumours survive 5 years. That's 1 in 10. So you look at that and you think, well, then all of a sudden you start to look forward 5 years, 5 years, and think, am I going to be another statistic? Am I what's going to happen? And then you start to think, have I done enough in my life and in my career to feel like I've achieved everything I wanted to do if I was to succumb to this? So it's such an interesting development that you go through that you never really get a chance to talk about, and you never really get a chance to even verbalise or make sense of yourself. It was the nature of feeling that we're all vulnerable. We're all going to pass away at one stage in our life. Are we ever ready for it?
You sent me a brief bio on yourself, and there's dot points you've sent me that you were diagnosed with a congenital heart condition at the age of 2, requiring 3 open heart operations through your childhood. You were never able to play football due to the risk of cardiac arrest. So when you're now told that you have a brain tumour, was there a point? And I want to get to the positivity of this in a few minutes' time, but I want to really get to how you felt at this time, thinking, this, pardon my language, this is absolutely fucked. My whole life I've had to deal with health issues, and now this one just adds to the list. It
sounds crazy, and at the time there was a lot of the doctors didn't quite know how to approach this with me either. They said, like, you'll probably feel like you're unlucky, right? Like, what else could happen? You've had all these heart issues growing up, and now you cop brain cancer. Like, that's unlucky in anyone's book. But you know what? I think I've learnt something from each of these things, and I think having a heart condition at such a young age and dealing with it and dealing with doctors and procedures and everything had actually helped me better prepare myself and arm myself with the tools to deal with something like this. Because when you're young and you deal with these things, kids are so robust. Kids can really deal with things, and they can recover, and they just have this natural ability to just bounce back and get back to back to their best. So I guess there was something with being a kid and having to deal with things that I couldn't do, and not feeling well for a lot of the time, that actually when this happened, I thought, you know what, there's something in me that knows that I've done it before and I can do it again. Obviously the unknown of what lay ahead was the scary thing, but as far as my actual physical wellness went, I thought, I'm going to be able to smash this.
I just want to ask one more question in regards to the surgery. Before you went under for the surgery, did you prepare everything that you needed to prepare just in case you didn't wake up?
I did. There was a lot of hard decisions I had to make before that. I had to sign a power of attorney over to family, because the risks were that I wasn't going to come through it. there are also times where I just need I may lose my cognitive ability to speak, or where my tumour is, it's in my language centre. And it sounds funny now because I'm able to communicate this to you, but there's a chance that if they went too aggressive, and it's really hard with the brain when you're under anaesthetic, they don't know exactly what they're taking out and how that will affect each individual. And there was a chance I might not be able to recognise language or be able to communicate after that too. So I remember going in under the knife when I was about to receive the anaesthetic, thinking this may be the last time I'll ever be here or feel this way again. I might not have this ability to be able to process these kind of thoughts again. I might not be able to do the things that I've always done. Like, this could be literally the last time that I feel like I am me. And that was pretty scary, I guess. That was really, it really rocked me to my core. And there's no way you can truly prepare for it, but I've had to just find a way to just be at peace with it.
Well, you did find a way, Jacob, and this video, which on YouTube has over 232,000 views. I had to watch it so many times because I've said to a couple of my guests on this Role Models podcast, I hate that it takes bad things to happen to us or people that you care about to make you reflect on your own life. And the way that you tackled post-surgery and also going through your surgery, you didn't just sit back and thought, okay, I'm going to just see how this goes. You thought, no, stuff this, I am going to run the New York Marathon. And I still can't believe this has actually happened. So please, you've woken up from surgery, you've got back into your rehabilitation. Talk us through your outlook on life from that moment.
It's pretty silly is what it is. And I don't know if it was in the right frame of mind to be making huge decisions on fitness goals and things at the time, but hey, it happened like this. I was sitting at home. They wouldn't let me work. Look, everything went pretty well with the procedure, reasonably well anyway. And I was recovering at home, just sitting there. And I thought, you know what? This is a point where I could sit and feel sorry for myself and take the sympathy that everyone was giving to me, or I could actually go, you know what? This is maybe a second chance to actually do something and make a change. And so what I'd been doing was documenting my story all the way through since getting diagnosed. I just jumped in front of my camera and started recording on my iPhone. My mum was filming things in the hospital. Started putting this story together and starting to get some feedback from people saying, this is great that you're taking us on the journey with you. And I thought, you know what? Maybe there's a chance that I can actually do something for charity or raise awareness and use myself as an example. So I signed up to do the New York Marathon to run it in November of that year, and I'd had surgery in March. So it'd be 7 months from surgery to marathon, and I ran it for a brain cancer charity in the United States. And I thought, what better way to get over and, challenge myself and do something that I don't think I'm really going to enjoy doing, but do it for a good reason and to provide an example. So I went to New York City, and, if there's a marathon to do, it'd be to do one in New York, as you know. So it was unbelievable, but I just felt like those months leading up to that, I hated dragging myself out and running, but you know what, every time I did, and what really drove me to put one foot in front of the other every time is to think about all the people that couldn't do that, and then all the people that had jumped on this journey with me that were supporting me, going, you know what you're doing is going to help me, going to give some motivation to other people that might not be up for fighting the fight. And, what better motivation is there than that, to be honest?
And what about the feeling when you crossed the finish line, Jacob? Talk me through those emotions.
Well, I must admit, I'd never envisaged running a marathon, and you can use as many analogies as you like, life's a marathon, those kinds of things. And you're running the marathon, you're finishing in Central Park, and the finish line, you come around a bend and you're heading up and you can see these grandstands, and my parents had flown all the way to New York City to be at the finish line as well, and they'd come on the whole journey with me too. And I was just thinking, running towards the end, thinking, oh my goodness, I'm actually going to do this. I'm actually about to cross the finish line in the New York Marathon. And I remember just it flashing through my mind as I was running through those last steps, thinking about laying in the hospital bed, thinking about sitting in the doctor's office when he told me all this news, and then thinking about all the people that had just, hung on to this as well. And I don't know, when I went over the line, I nearly broke down. Like I was so overcome with self-satisfaction of finishing a marathon, but also that it wasn't just me. It was like carrying everything with me. So it was so hard to explain, but it was such a unique moment that I still feel it every time I look back on it. It's something that I treasure, and I hold the medal, New York medal, really close to my heart, and I actually take it with me a lot of places I go to, just to have that constant reminder.
Do you find that when people walk past you or they don't know your story and they start complaining about the day-to-day shit that people go through, you almost want to say, listen, it's not that bad. I've been through bad, and it almost frustrates you?
It's so funny, isn't it? And you're right. Like you hear that quite a lot, and even sometimes you're back at work and you're hearing people complain about their day at work, and that everything's frustrating. And it's funny how you get sucked back into that sometimes. I even find myself getting caught up in, you get caught up in politics, you get caught up in things, and you actually lose the perspective that you've gained sometimes. And you need that reminder. I look in the mirror and I see where I had my surgery. Now I've got quite a hefty dent in my head from where they had to remove bits and pieces and bolt me back together. And I look and go, you know what? This is good, because I get this reminder that you need to have that perspective, and you need to keep everything in perspective, because it's so funny how everyone gets caught up in their own worlds that they lose sight of the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that we're all in this. We only get one crack at life, so we need to make the most of it while we can. We don't need to sweat these small details. Like, what's the point?
And your career's just blossomed again. I mean, you indicated to me that you worked for ESPN for the Olympics in Rio, appointed to the board of directors of your cancer charity. And correct me if I'm wrong, but are you engaged?
I am engaged. You're right. I found love in a hopeless place on Instagram, of all places. But look, everything's just been great. And to be honest, I look back and I'll say this thing, the last few years have been the best few years of my life, because it's given me new direction. It's given me new motivation. It's put me in touch with people that I'd never, ever imagined meeting. It's given me new ambition to achieve more work goals. Like, as you said, I've been working for ESPN for a couple of years now, and doing things that I never thought I'd do. And it's all because when I woke up from my surgery and I got these ambitions to run a marathon, I also gained these ambitions to think, this is a shot at life. This is another chance to really do something while I can, because I'll never forget the words that my neurosurgeon said to me in the hospital after surgery. He said, now's the time to do the things that you want to do. And that stuck with me. Initially I thought, does that mean that I'm going to die soon? But then I looked at it as, you know what? He's right. Like, you've just got to take it and run with it, because no one knows how long they have left. You don't want to leave any stone unturned before your time's up. So everyone's just got to get out there and have a crack at it.
Well, Jacob Walker, your video, if people want to see it, how can they follow you on YouTube and all your social channels?
If you just jump onto YouTube and look at Jacob Walker, if you just put that in the search, it'll pop up straight away. I have a YouTube channel where I upload a lot of videos, and the same deal with Instagram and Twitter as well. It's everywhere. If you just pop my name in, it'll come up straight away. Pretty identifiable with thumbnails and things, and there's a whole bunch of things in there. I do respond to people that send me emails, and I try and upload fitness advocacy stuff as well to keep people motivated. So there's a lot of ways that anyone can get in touch, and I'd love to hear from people as well. So
you are definitely a role model, mate. A role model more than I can give credit to, and you are such an inspiring human being. Your attitude is just absolutely incredible, and it's a pleasure to have you on this, mate. I know we could talk about this for so long, but I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm a bit taken back by everything we spoke about, because you're a lot stronger than I am and a lot stronger than lots of other human beings, and you've shown strength in adversity and a really positive outlook on life. And as I said, you are definitely a role model. So Jacob Walker, thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Jarrod. I appreciate it.
I'm going to be really honest with you and paint the picture as much as I can. After that conversation with Jacob Walker, I put the microphone down and did one of those big... As you can hear, I didn't really say much, because I'm in awe of this human being, an incredible person when I first met him, and then to hear his story, to watch it on video, and to see his outlook on life. Like, it's It's inspiring. I feel so weak around him because he's so strong. He bloody ran the New York Marathon 7 months after brain surgery. I mean, really, think about it. Look, I want you to have a look at this video. I will chuck it up in the description of this podcast, all of his social media accounts as well. And if you enjoyed listening to the podcast and got something out of it, I really encourage you to share it. You can review it. You can rate it. You can thumbs up on Stitcher and stuff and share it on all your social media accounts. I'm going to continue creating these podcasts to really bring some positivity into people's lives, because the last 7 episodes have shown there's a lot of people, we know what they do in the spotlight, but it's what's going on behind the scenes, which I think deserves a little bit more recognition. So I really appreciate you listening. Whew. It's pretty full on that one, hey. I'll catch you at episode 8. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is part of the Ozcast Network.